Yeah. Hey, my name is Natalia, and today I'm going to talk about Utvecklare, verkligheten from universitet till arbetsplats. And then I have Natalia Femerström with me.
Hejsan.
Yes. So a little bit about me. So I work as a software developer at Buildility, and have worked a lot with students and back-end, front-end, and multiple areas.
Och jag är vd, ägare, grundare av Buildility och jobbar då tajt med Natalia och våra anställda och olika projekt som vi gör.
Yes. So a little bit about Buildility.
Buildility är ju ett väldigt litet företag. Det är ju en startup, det finns några anställda och så. Men vi har också en bredd av kompetenser som vi arbetar med. Bland annat då så har vi ju våra kunder inom digitalisering av samhällsprocessen, Lantmäteriet och Boverket, där vi gör mjukvaruutveckling. Vi har också vår grund som egentligen grundades utifrån bygglov, fastighet och arkitektur. Och sen så har vi då konsulting inom engineering, aerospace, space, VR. Och bioinformatik, en liten bit där också.
Yes, that is my background, is software development inside bioinformatics. And yep.
Just det. Så trippelhelixen är en väldigt viktig del och det är en etablerad term för hur man samverkar mellan olika organisationer, och det har vi tagit tillvara på, bland annat då hur vi samverkar eller representerar industri i det här fallet. Vi gör uppdrag åt stat, government och liknande, och sen då samverkar ihop tillsammans med universitet från de olika perspektiven för att sy ihop det här så att vi kan nyttja alla aktörer i samhället för att göra en bra insats tillsammans där i. Jag glömde nämna det också att vi kommer växelköra presentationen lite på engelska och svenska. Så att det fungerar bra.
Ja, jag kommer från Brasilien så jag är inte så flytande på svenska. Men, yeah. And, vi har erfarenhet med de tre sektorer här, industry, government and university. And that's why we decided to talk a little bit about it. So what business expects and some tips and tricks. But first we can start. What is a startup?
Vi börjar med en startup. Som sagt, en snabb beslutfattning karaktäriserar startups. Begränsad information om uppdrag och vad man behöver lösa för någonting. Snabb prototypframtagning, många iterativa tester. Och en person har oftast flera olika roller. Mycket kontinuerligt och nytt lärande. Men en startup håller ju på att lära sig sin verksamhet samtidigt som man utför verksamheten. Så det blir väldigt mycket utforskanden och test i att hitta vad som fungerar just för det här företaget.
And then, okay. So then here there is a big difference between agile and also business structure. So agile, it's what we learn a lot at university, how to work with a scrum master, and everyone works together and everyone decides everything. And there is also the iteration part of the technique. But then in a business structure, so we need to understand that is a legalized dictatorship where we have bosses and CEO and we need to follow the rules. We cannot take all the decisions when we are an employee and a developer. And there is also big differences for that because the business, they care about stability. They have a long-term goal. They have a budget. They need to think about deadlines. And they are very clear with the roles. So at Buildility, for example, Don is the CEO. I am the developer, so I always need to report to him before I do any changes. I cannot simply change because I want to change. You want to add something?
Ja, men det viktiga är att man spenderar tid på rätt saker, och rätt saker är ju din chef eller projektledare som avgör. Vart kommer den här tiden hamna någonstans? Och det är ju en stor skillnad mellan universitet och liknande där man har en mer demokratiserande process och självstyrande dessutom. Så att man får vara vaksam på de här skillnaderna och förstå det när man hamnar i de olika kontexten.
And then it's here, the difference between university and the academia. University and the industry. So academia, we think a lot about theory, what this stuff are, algorithms. We have a lot of projects there, but it's in the industry that we will actually gonna apply what we learn. But then we need to consider a lot of other things. We need to consider the deadlines. We need to work with people we don't know. And we also need to consider the priorities of the business. So this is a big jump, a big step between academia to industry. And this is what we notice where there is the difficulties with a lot of young developers. So here I call the Daniel's competence quadrant because he's always explaining about this ability. So the quadrant talks about vad, hur, rutin, and motivation. And when we graduate at university, we basically have the vad and motivation. So I know the theory, I know how the theory is, and I am super motivated to contribute to a business, to get a job, and I want to get things into reality. But I don't know how and the routine. I don't know how to do. I don't know how to apply this theory. And I have never done it before. So I have only read books, did 1 or 2 projects with the university. And then at a point when after you are hired and you start working as a developer, you are going to acquire the how and the routine. But then it's also important that we keep the motivation, because a good developer, it has these 4 quadrants. They know the theory, they know how to apply, they have done multiple times, and they are still motivated.
Sen är det ju en dynamisk kvadrant också utifrån att vissa saker faller bort beroende på vilken organisation exempelvis man är i. Så att hur man tillämpar någonting fungerar ju på ett sätt på universitetet men ett annat i ett visst företag. Och när man dessutom byter mellan företag så kan man ju känna sig lite mindre skillad i eller inte alls förstå hur det kommer att tillämpas just där. Utan det är ju din startsträcka i det företaget som du nu har hamnat i. Så att då behöver man bygga upp den delen av kompetensmatrisen igen. Jag tycker det är viktigt att man försöker att definiera vad kompetens är för någonting. Så bryta lite ner i delar och se hur man kan göra olika aktiviteter för att förbättra sin kompetens på olika sätt.
Mm. But it's important also to understand that the business perspective, we understand that you as a young developer is not going to start contributing to the business in the first month. It takes most of the times up to 1 year before you start contributing. So business, when they hire young people, they are actually doing an investment on you. They bet that you are going to learn and contribute only after 1 year. So it's important that the young developers, they are patient because it takes time to understand everything. It's not only how to apply the theory, but also how to understand to work in this business. You also need to adapt a lot depending on the tools that you use, your team, and the requirements. And keep in mind that you will always learn. Every project is something new. You learn something new. So motivation is something important to keep going with. Take feedback. So constructive feedback is not always a bad thing. So a lot of people get sad when they get some feedback, but it's very important so we improve our skills. And be curious and test new things. So if you are a front-end developer, don't be stuck in just being a front-end developer. So go to other areas of the business. So what business actually expect from you? So the first one is the most important one. So the business should be able to trust on you. You need to be transparent. You need to respect the rules and routine. So if it's agreed that you're going to start at 8, so you need to start at 8. I have noticed that there is a lot of things like, I just start when I feel like, or I feel like working from home today, and then just text my colleagues I'm working from home. So this most of business, they don't uppskatta this. Also create solutions. So you are being hired to create solutions and not to create problems. This goes to micromanage and självledarskap. When a developer get user stories, so they shouldn't expect that project managers are going to micromanage them. So for example, here let's develop this button, and then this button needs to have a title, it needs to have a this style. It's not going to work like that. So most of the times you would just get an task like, we need a button that does this, and that. And then you need to think about these small details yourself. So you need to be independent to have this logic thinking as well. Dress and behave professionally. So no one wants to work close to someone that is like 3 days without showering, or just talks about slang words here and there. Came back. Tack. No. You also need to understand the business perspective. So what is the goal with this project? How many hours we should invest on that? What is the budget? What the customer expects from it? And you need to be open to learn and also to understand the limitations and your limits. So you shouldn't go over, like I said previously, this hierarchy. You shouldn't take decisions that are not up to you to take. You should always respect the limits of the business. Something else want to add? No. Okay. And then this is something very common nowadays that I noticed, that a lot of people they know their rights, but they don't understand their obligations as an employee. And I think business should start letting this clear more tillit to employees to understand it. So employees' rights are, for example, you have the right to lön, förmåner, a safe arbetsmiljö, union representation, vacation, raster, and so on. But then the business also expects you to arrive on time, to follow the contract, understand and do correctly your tasks according to instructions. Be loyal. No one wants an employee that spreads business information to competitors. Respect deadlines. I heard a lot developers saying, I cannot estimate when I'm done with that. Developers don't estimate deadlines. But business doesn't work like that. We have a customer waiting for delivery. So we need to develop according to the deadline. And follow business rules. And it's important to understand that the business, they have the right to ställa krav. Vet inte på engelska. And this is something very forgotten for a lot of young developers. Not that? No. Learning to work on a team. So we have worked a lot with the students for some years. So about 25 students per semester we had. And we used together here at Go to 10 to discuss and to debug and rubber duck together. And it's very important to understand your role in a team. So who does what? I am a front-end developer. I am the UX designer. Who is the responsible for what? And learn how to work together. Because most of the times, like when we are just thinking ourselves, and trying to figure it out ourselves, we might not find the correct answer how to solve the task. Communication should be clear and respectful, not only in meetings but also in code. So you always should be clear what the code is doing and what I am doing. And for that exists a lot of avstämningar, retrospective avstämningar, so everyone knows which step are we in the development, what is late and what is going super well. And retrospective is when we reflect about a finished project to understand what can be improved and what was super good and what we failed with. And then you can talk about quality communication now.
Ja, men det här med kommunikation är superviktigt och varit ännu viktigare i och med lessons learned och erfarenheter från coronapandemin. Då hamnar vi ju helt plötsligt från att ha träffats varje dag på kontoret, så vart allting remote, alla skulle ställa om och ställa tillbaks till att använda någon form av Teams eller Zoom-lösning och så vidare. Men det man måste tänka på är också att den här kommunikationen som vi är vana vid, vi är ju sociala varelser, vi har under all tid egentligen fram tills nu haft en direkt kommunikation med varandra där vi kan se, vi kan förstå, vi kan gestikulera och uttrycka oss på olika sätt och vis. Och mycket av det gick förlorat i och med de här digitala lösningarna. Och ännu mer så när man exempelvis skriver meddelanden till varandra. Så det finns en kvalitet. Jag hävdar att det finns en kvalitet på kommunikation och den kvaliteten finns i olika nivåer. Skriva meddelanden, jättesvårt att kommunicera olika typer av underförstådda saker eller liknande och dels göra sig helt förstådd. Det är lätt att missförstå meddelanden, särskilt ju längre de är. Att ringa näst bäst skulle jag säga, att man hör av sig till varandra, pratar exempelvis videosamtal eller bara vanligt samtal. Man kan förstå varandra bättre känner jag i det. Jag tycker att det är en högre nivå av kvalitet i den kommunikationen. Och allra bäst möte när man träffas ansikte mot ansikte och kan lösa olika sorters problem på ett bättre sätt, mer dynamiskt sätt tillsammans. De här olika andra kommunikationssätten ger också oftast en barriär, en liten tröskel. Om man exempelvis ska skriva det här meddelandet eller om man ska ringa någon exempelvis, då måste man trycka på den här ringa-knappen och öppna Teams och så vidare och ha det framme. Då. Att finnas bredvid varandra gör att den här barriären försvinner. Det är jätteenkelt att bara gå fram till varandra, säga hej och prata om, ja men du förresten, om den här grejen, den skulle vi ju titta på. Just det. Och sen så börjar man. Så att tänk på det. Kommunikation finns i olika kvalitativa nivåer.
Mm. Yeah, and that's why working from the office is the best option than working from home. Yes, so again, communication and behavior. So here it's repetition from the previous slide. So there is a developer with a very messy table, super nervous because doesn't communicate with anyone, and then the other one that have had a meeting is happy, the table is clean. So keep also your workplace in order is important. Learn how to manage conflict in a good way and follow cybersecurity rules. Like save your skydda data, lösenord, the tokens, not only your data but the business data. When you are working a business, you have access to the business data. You cannot be an access point to hackers to get into it, the business data. And then a bit of grundläggande mjukvaruutveckling. So this is a very important part, that is the components of a computer, and I noticed that we don't learn this at university that much, at least not in my program. And I have also noticed that a lot of developers, they start learning how to code, but never pass through this part. And this is very important to understand the limitations and how to manage your code to overcome these limitations. As examples, we have the $1 billion code and Spotify, and they become $1 billion code is the processor of Google Earth. And they became what they became because they learned how to overcome the limitations of hardware and develop algorithms to overcome the limitations. And steps of software development. So here, normally when we are developers, we only think about the coding part, front-end, back-end, database, and APIs. And we forget to think about the whole picture, the process, which is planning, design, testing. Testing is the most forgotten one. But the planning is the most important one at the beginning. So where you are going to understand the requirements, customers' requirements, the final goal, the budget, and the timeline of it through most of the times a Gantt chart. The design is when we take the planning and we translate from a document into design, a visual website, for example. And we also choose what technologies we are going to use, what languages we are going to develop for front end and back end, for example. And then it goes the coding. So coding should be much faster now because we have already planned. We know the technologies, we know the design, how should it look like, we know the user flow. So then now we just need to translate visually to the coding language. We shouldn't think there about how it's going to look like. This should already have been done in the 2 first phases. And then it comes up agile throughout coding and testing and deployment with this iteration where we code, we test, and then we deploy. And the test is the most important part because it's where we are going to double check if everything works how it should before we deploy it to the production to the customers. And this is something that I notice that a lot of developers, they code and they only have the code lines in their screen. And a tip here is you always have the code in one side and what the result, like the website, in the other side. So I want to change the height of this button. So I change the height. It's probably 1 word of code. Then I look and I actually double check if this button has updated the height. So small stuff like this also are very important for testing. And there is also other stuff behind, like nätverk, infrastructure, understand how the servers, what the business uses, if they host their own server or if they use a cloud-based, cybersecurity, and there is also the kund with the testing and what the kund expects and is paying for. So a good developer is also involved in multiple parts of this process and not only stuck in the coding part.
Och en kund förväntar sig ju regelbundna leveranser också, uppdateringar, uppföljning och vad som sker. Och det blir ju lättare när man har gjort en bra planering, en bra design och kan hamna i en get it done-fas och regelbundet att följa upp med sina peers eller en kund för vad man har åstadkommit så långt.
Yeah. And then it's also important that a developer is not specific in one area, mainly for a startup. So like a front-end developer only knows how to code front-end, or a back-end only knows how to code back-end. So it's important that you know multiple areas. You don't need to be an expert in only one area, but knowing little bit per area is the most important part. For example, this is a quick analogy of back-end and front-end. When I go to a restaurant, if the table is pretty and the environment is super pretty, but the food is not good, I'm not going to be super happy. I will probably get out of there complaining, or vice versa. So for a good experience for the user, it's important that the food is good and the environment is also good. and the integration of these two as well. So we also want to be treated nicely by the waiter or waitress. You don't want to mistreat it. Yes, and then this is some basic in software development, that is Git and versionhantering. And I noticed that we learn a lot of theory about that at university, but we actually don't apply that at all. And a lot of developers, they don't have any clue how to work with that. And this is very important to save time and money and structure in the business. I will give an example. So for example, let's say I have this web page to develop, and this is my task of the day. I have the home page to do. And then I create a branch to separate my code and to have a good structure. So in the future, I can find, okay, what was done and which time. Create the code, created a nav bar, and then I do a commit. I do a commit after every new feature, just in case something bad happened to my computer. And then if it's not saved, it's not synced, I'm gonna lose everything, all the code I did. Tomorrow I will need to do it again. And the CEO is gonna be mad because it's gonna be lots of money and time lost. And also I should commit when I finish my shift. After that, let's say following day, I will have someone or AI to review my code. And if something has crashed here because of Git, I can go back and restore the previous version, the previous working version, and also analyze what is actually crashing here. Otherwise, if it's approved, it's going to make a pull request. And one person or two persons in the business are the one responsible to approving it to the production, from staging to the production. Some other basic concepts is pipelines. So we automate the building process, deployment of staging, deployment of the production. Docker, all developers should also know how to manage Docker, so we don't need to install all the packages at once. We have a container and then we pull all the websites that we need, or all the code we need in this environment. I think Docker is more like a book. I don't want to grab page by page. I want to grab the whole book. And a virtual machine to inside your computer. You can have multiple machines for deployment of staging, for testing, for multiple things. So it's good grund concept to keep in mind. And also what the server or cloud solutions, it depends on the business. Some of them, they're going to have their own server. Other business are going to use a cloud-based server. So it's also important to understand. In this case is Azure DevOps, which I love the board because it's very good to structure sprints, user stories, and bugs to fix. And clean code. This is, I think, one of the most important parts of being a developer is to know how to clean it up and make a good quality code. And the goal is to not have any spaghetti code where everything is messy, dirty. We don't know where the stuff are. We don't know where the files are. And it's very expensive to maintain this code. So the good approach is to have a modular code where we can reuse components, for example. It saves time, money, and we don't need to be repeating ourselves all the time. So in one website, I have, 10 buttons to develop, and I will create just one button where I can reuse everything. I don't need to write the same code 10 times. And cybersecurity.
Ja, men superviktigt med cybersäkerhet också. Oftast något som är mindre eller lägre prioriterat. Och det är inte bara IT-avdelningens ansvar med cybersäkerhet, utan det är ju också allas ansvar, vi som arbetar med de här digitala systemen och våra projekt då. Så nummer 1, absolut, gör inte det du inte får. Följ företagets policy och skydda data, inloggningar, använd starka lösenord och gärna en lösenordshanterare om företaget tillhandahåller en sån. 2-faktorautentisering anses ju vara den absolut främsta skyddet mot olika former av breaches eller liknande som kan uppstå då. Och förstå grundläggande säkerhetsprinciper. Phishing, social engineering. Vilka sätt försöker man idag på att försöka komma in i olika typer av system? Och vad ska man vara vaksam på? Idag är det fortfarande mail som är den vanligaste vektorn för att komma åt någon. Och då att man har misstag klicka på någon suspekt länk eller liknande.
Mm. Yep. And everyone talking about AI, so I couldn't not mention that here. So a lot of people wonder if AI is going to replace their jobs and have a lot of developers unemployed. And it is true that AI is going to replace a lot of people. As an example, before what an UI or UX designer would take 3 months to do in Figma, now Lovable can done in half a day. Or a person, developer reviewer, code reviewer. So now there is GitHub Copilot that you can set your own rules there, and the Copilot is going to review all of your code. Also in like a couple of minutes, before something that used to take days and you needed to wait to do a pull request and deploy because the person was still granskning the code. So the tips is to understand and learn how you can manage AI and become like a person, I-star person, I-star developer. And use AI for your deal. So for example, UI and UX designer that nowadays can manage prompting to Lovable and get the correct UI and user flow in Lovable just with some prompts. It's very important that this person knows how to prompt. And that's it. Yeah.
Ja, men alla former av så att säga, större nyttjande av artificiell intelligens kommer också kräva egentligen enligt mig mer användare av reell intelligens, alltså vår intelligens, det vi är duktiga på. Men AI kommer ju betydligt snabba upp och hjälpa till att fylla bladet med förslag. Men sen måste man fortfarande ha den här förmågan att avgöra, är det här ett bra förslag och är det här bra kod exempelvis, så ska jag verkligen ta den och nyttja den, eller ska jag inspireras av det här sättet att möjligen kunna lösa det på och sen implementera den lösningen som faktiskt uppfyller alla kriterier och ramar som man har att förhålla sig till.
And what before was done by a whole group, like 5 people, UI, UX designers, nowadays 1 UX plus Lovable can make it. And then tips and tricks. So now there is a democratization of learning and knowledge. So you don't need to wait a course be given at university for you to start learning in the university calendar. You can simply go to Udemy and Coursera, and what something before used to cost thousands of crowns nowadays cost like a couple of hundreds, and you do on your own pace at your home or at your home, and you can learn everything that is expected for you to improve your skills at your workplace. So, and questions. Think we finish on time.
Väl i god tid.
Ja.
Ja, men med det så tackar vi så jättemycket för oss. Tack för att ni lyssnade.
Yes.